Well, I think that's what a great thing about this is there is no change to the learning curve. It's still a material, still requires the minimal placement in terms of depth, right? So you're not going to be using this as a bulk fill. You'll be using your traditional increments, photopolymerizing it, allowing that material to utilize the flowability, the adaptation, and all that type of thing. So really no change to technique at all. It's just purely more of a technological advancement in a material that has been lacking that forever and ever. And I think that's the next big step in composite dentistry. We've got strength, we've got beauty. Now we're going to start talking about looking at protection, right? Long-term protection of restorations. And so no learning curve change, just a newer step in technology to help drive, hopefully, our outcomes to be more and more successful as we move forward.
What's going on, everybody? I'm John Stamper, and welcome to a special episode of the Beyond the Operatory podcast, brought to you by the amazing team at Dental City. And for those of you that subscribe to the podcast, as you have heard, in 2026, we have been spending time having conversations with individuals that are either in dentistry, outside of dentistry, on one side of the podcast, with different ideas for your business in regards to like leadership and practice management and all of that. But as many of you know, Dental City has great relationships with so many of the different dental manufacturer companies out there. And so we thought it'd be beneficial for those of you that subscribe to the podcast to have some conversations with some of these companies' key opinion leaders. And most importantly, dentists, hygienists, clinicians that are in the field actually utilizing these products to give you the best overview of that. So I'm excited today. The podcast, we've got Premier Dental, which is excited to be launching a new line of restorative products, including MultiMatch Flow with BioArmor, antimicrobial protection. And with me today, we're joined by Dr. Troy Schmedding, who's going to discuss MultiMatch Flow and the benefits it offers for your practice and your patients. Troy's been practicing, we were just talking, like 30 years. Always get kind of like, wow, it goes so fast, but he's currently in the Northern California area, beautiful city of Walnut Creek. Troy, it's great to have you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, John. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I thought we would start. The first question I wanted to get to, maybe give our listeners a little context. What problems were you and the Premier team trying to solve when developing a product like MultiMatch Flow? I think that's a great place to get us started.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, so when you talk about composite dentistry and you talk about the evolutions of the materials, I mean, they've advanced so much in the last number of years that really that next step is kind of where do we take this in terms of kind of an antimicrobial type approach to it, meaning how about incorporation of some form of a antimicrobial that will help fight the bacteria that ultimately leads to the demineralization and the breakdown of our restorations. I mean, composite's always been a challenge in many, many steps in terms of placement, polymerization of the materials, all the way down to creating an adequate seal that will give the longevity to the restoration. But all in all, the breakdown and the demineralization portion of that is really what led this resurgence or new innovation in terms of composite to look at something that would, like I said, approach it in an antimicrobial way to defeat those bacteria that are causing this demineralization process to occur. And that's really the basis of where MultiMatch has started.
All right, so next I want to talk a little bit about that innovation that you just mentioned, which is the BioArmor antimicrobial protection. So we'll start there specifically. I know there's a term that our listeners may not have heard before. What is it? How does it work? And most importantly, why does it matter clinically for the dental team that's using it from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's an antimicrobial called Octenidine dihydrochloride, which some would just call it OCT, makes it a lot easier. But really, what it's incorporated within the composite, and it's got a leaching component to it, where it's leaching out from the composite at a very slow rate. I mean, someone will ask me, how long is it going to leach out for? Well, they've estimated to leach out for over a period of 400 years, so well within the frame of a restoration's lifetime. But ultimately, what it's doing is attacking the bacteria that's causing this demineralization process to occur. So it's attacking the bacteria, lysing the bacteria, and killing it, all within a broad spectrum range of a pH, which allows it to function within that diversity of what bacteria causes in forms of demineralization. So very complex type situation, but really just think about it as kind of a extra set of guns in there that's kind of blazing out, shooting out, and killing bacteria. bioactivity is kind of a word that you'll hear, and people are like, oh, is this a bioactive composite and whatnot? And I think, yeah, I mean, I think you call it a bioactive material. Bioactivity in dentistry is kind of a probably not a very well-defined term. We've had bioactivity for lots and lots of years, and that can relate everything from a fluoride release to a calcium release to all different types of bioactive approaches. But the newer generation of the multi-match with BioArmor is in that antimicrobial effect. So it's going to go out, it's going to attack those bacteria, kill those bacteria, and prevent the colonization of biofilm along the margins of your restoration, and will give you the longevity that hopefully we're trying to strive for with all of our restorations.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about the patient experience because, again, you and I were talking before we came on here that all that a patient wants is the pain to be removed, or to your point, if it's a restoration and the like, that it's strong, they can be confident that they're not going to have issues moving forward. But when a clinician, Troy, switches to multi-match flow, what does that change for the patient in the chair? Like, are any different outcomes, comfort levels, like long-term resorts or long-term results, I should say, that are like meaningful, different? Anything along those lines that you feel like, would impact the patient?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the patient's experience, no, nothing's really going to change. I mean, this is a composite that has a tremendous viscosity. It's in a flowable format, so it's allow easy placement, marginal adaptation. So you're not going to change much in terms of how you feel with the composite or the patient, obviously, experience. But the material itself, we probably should talk a little bit about the material because what's interesting about this, besides the bioactivity, is yes, it does come with proper physical properties, meaning it is a material that's not going to break down. It's got all those dimensional structural things that we look for in terms of physical properties of composite. Then the other thing is it is a single shade flowable composite. So it's incorporated this newer um, what would you consider it? Light diffusion technology that you see a lot in composites today, where they're able to utilize filling materials that allow better light scattering. So this multi-match flow that we're talking about does come in one shade, and it does cover all 16 Vita shades. So very interesting. So it's a very universal composite in terms of that aspect, but ultimately, yes, the big seller is the bioactivity. But in terms of patient experience, no, they're not going to feel anything different. Nothing's going to be different to them. Doctor experience will be no different as well in terms of it is a material that we're all very familiar with. It just has a different component. Now, in terms of enhancement for the patient or experience, yeah, it'd be more of a verbal type thing in the sense that now this gives you an opportunity to put you as the practitioner in front of your materials and have a great conversation with the patient, let them know what this material is you're using. It's a newer generation, it's a newer advanced composite. So what does that do for you? Well, hopefully it gives you more reputability with your patients, right? And maybe that is something that's a conversation that begins to grow out in the channels of networking, so to speak, in terms of patient referrals and that type of stuff. But certainly an opportunity to discuss the material in terms of an outcome or an experience difference. No, hopefully nothing at all, right? I mean, ultimately the goal is to place it, cure it, finish it, get the bite checked, and send that patient out, and you don't hear from them again, right? Which is the ultimate goal of all dental practices, not to hear the next day from the patient, because the only time that next day phone call is any good is not very good ever, really, right? Because they're only calling for one reason, and that's to complain. So generally, yeah, not a lot of difference in terms of experiences that they will feel, but more of a format for you to discuss with your patient, allow them to know that you are doing the latest, greatest, newest innovations of restorative materials.
Well, and I think it's important, like you mentioned, I cannot imagine a practice explaining to the patient a lot of the technicalities that you spoke about, and then them going home and talking to family or friends and talking about all those details. As you said, Troy, they're going to talk about the office took care of me. I'm not in pain. Like I know that they're using the latest or greatest material, so I know that's what matters. But I wanted to ask you, before we wrap, how have patients changed, post COVID? Like, I feel like because there's a lot more information out there, whether the information they're getting is right or wrong, ultimately,
Right.
we do know that more patients are researching or hopefully coming into the practice and a little bit more concerned in regards to the oral systemic link and how their oral health is connected to the rest of their body. But have you seen a change in patients, like asking more questions? And I wanted to tie that together because I think a lot of the things that you shared can, hit on the importance of, having these conversations with patients.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I mean, that's I call it Dr. Google here in the practice, right? There's a lot of Dr. Googles that are running around my practice, and whether it's good or bad, right? I mean, they could be getting great information or not great information. So that's always puts you in a little bit of a tricky spot, so to speak, to kind of defend yourself. But ultimately, it's there, right? There's too much information out there and too easy of an access, right? They can plug it in and get an answer back in 3 seconds. So yeah, to your point, yes. Are you having more conversations? Are you being more maybe advanced than we used to be in relationship to what are you putting in my mouth and why are we doing this and what's the benefits? Yeah, I think it's a very common thing that I'm seeing more and more, and I personally enjoy it. I think I like ownership in what people are doing. I think it's a great opportunity to educate as well as promote yourself. If you are doing the right things in your practice and you truly love dentistry, you're gonna be able to exploit that and definitely push it to an advantageous part of your conversation with your patient. But it's funny you say that. Yes, it's happening more and more, and I do think it gives us a platform to push what we're doing in our practices and hopefully allow the patient to feel more comfortable. And once again, provide that that reputation within the area that you're all looking for, right? Because that's what dentistry is based upon, is not the quick hit advertisement, get lots of new patient, but the reputation that drives you and your practice to be successful for many, many years.
Yeah, I love that. One of the first things, Troy, that I learned in dentistry 21 years ago is that materials dictate technique. And so, being that we're talking a little bit about this multi-match flow and all the like, learning curve, like anything from the clinician's perspective to know, like for those that switch to this, like and anything on that side that you feel like is different than maybe what they're normally using from a learning curve perspective.
Well, I think that's what a great thing about this is there is no change to the learning curve. It's still a material, still requires the minimal placement in terms of depth, right? So you're not going to be using this as a bulk fill. You'll be using your traditional increments, photopolymerizing it, allowing that material to utilize the flowability, the adaptation, and all that type of thing. So really no change to technique at all. It's just purely more of a technological advancement in a material that has been lacking that forever and ever. And I think that's the next big step in composite dentistry. We've got strength, we've got beauty. Now we're going to start talking about looking at protection, right? Long-term protection of restorations. And so no learning curve change, just a newer step in technology to help drive, hopefully, our outcomes to be more and more successful as we move forward.
And then finally, Troy, what's it been like for you to work with Premier? I mean, I share this a lot. I think that one of the great things about dentistry can be these relationships between the companies that are creating these products and materials, and of course the clinicians like yourself, because there's that constant feedback loop, right? Things are created. What do you all need that makes the procedures better, like, better patient care and all of that? Like, what's it been like for you to kind of have that type of relationship where that they're going to, be open-minded to what works in the operatory and then vice versa?
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough. I think that's an important thing to have a communication line between the manufacturer and actually the doctor. And so I've been very fortunate to be in a situation with a KOL for other companies as well. But Premier is really an exceptional company, and just they've been around a long time, as we all know, been doing various things. But in terms of my relationship, it's been very open. It's been a situation where they're relying on me for information, trusting me, and being that liaison to communicate for doctors on that forefront. So and then incorporating it into my changes, right? So looking at and listening, not just being a listener and then poo-pooing, but rather listening and inserting certain things that we've discussed. And so I think that's really helps a company. And I think doctors understand that and they realize that they are being listened to and they're seeing that in results. So in terms of, when I do work with companies, I work with companies with a great reputation because like I said, I think I've mentioned reputation is important to me in many aspects, but also very important in terms of who I work with in terms of a manufacturer. And I don't think you can get any better than you get with Premier and what they've done for the last 100 years.
That's awesome. Well, Troy, I really appreciate your time. And again, for anybody that is watching the podcast, love to have you subscribe. We are continuing to have weekly episodes on this podcast, anything from, business ideas to help you on the leadership side of your practice to conversations like this with Troy, where we're discussing some of the great manufacturers and materials and all those things that you use every day in your practice and with your patients. So Troy, any final thoughts as we wrap?
No, thanks. I, really appreciate your time. I love that we get the opportunity to get on and chat like this, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Again, love to have you subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.